Here's just a couple more I thought I would show you too. In fact, let's just zoom in on this one here. This already carries value. Armies of Europe, the Napoleonic Army, and it's talking about Napoleon. So just an excellent example of something else that I would look for. So thought I would shout that one in there too. And this is from 18, and these are from 1803. So interesting earlier ones too. And just because of the age of the newspaper as well, the two of those together could be enough just to sell it. So any of these newspapers I'm showing you too, I'm probably going to put $57.50 or better on each one, even the ones without good content in them. Because just a newspaper from 1818 can hold some value. And I'll probably put these in the War of 1812 section, depending on dating time frame-ish. So just keep that in mind. Breach of privileges, Cold Fridays from England. So there's just some interesting articles. Nothing fancy in this one, but again, a most daring robbery. Here's an interesting one right here. In fact, that's a zoom-inable one here. So stuff like that, a robbery, some major event, daring robbery. This is something that people write books about. So, you know, a most daring robbery. Yesterday, between the hours of 2 and 3 o'clock, the office of subscribers in State Street was entered by false keys while we were absent to dinner, and an iron chest opened containing bank bills and other valuable paper taken therefrom. We can only recollect the following: a post note on the Mechanics Bank, $100 and 2 bills. Goes on to the whole deal. That's an interesting one for sure. Something that may be enough to sell it. There's talk about Spanish dollar, where they're running at. Just some interesting comments and things in this one here. So again, you're going to have to piece out what's important, what could be valuable. I'm not reading everything, so there might even be many more. There's another whale ad in the bottom here, right there. So whale oil is something that's well collected. Anything like that, strained oil, that's pretty interesting. Whaler information on the back would be great too. As I said, pirates. Here's hemp article up here on hemp. Stuff like that is collected. Tavern issues, alcohol for sale, all that kind of stuff. Let's move on to another one. So again, here's another 1818 February. So they're all fairly consecutive. And again, these could be ironed out to fix stuff like that. I've showed you the ironing. If you're careful, it's something that's easily doable by anybody out there. Just type in repair, and you should see it. I think that one should be tagged as well, just like all the rest of them. Spanish-American affair, so we're going back into General Murillo. Yeah, so there's some good content already. So we're back to island battle of some sort. We're talking from Savannah here, talking about Commodore Chaplin. Boy, there's a real long article. Unfortunate naval events. Known private circles. Let's see here. I'm trying to see where it gets into the commissioner officers. 1817, Port Mahone. So it's going to be interesting to read. This sounds already like there's some good content, and it keeps continuing. And this is from U.S. ship Java, Algiers Bay. So something happened out of the country. I'll have to look into. And it actually lists, maybe there's death tolls on here too. Yep, there's a whole group of deaths from whatever conflict happened. Memorial of the Officers of the United States Marine Corps. So there was some conflict here. So this is something, again, 1818, this is going to hold at least $125. Some of these I might even be able to put $250 on, believe it or not. It's just some interesting content, and it continues up on the top here too with names of dead soldiers, so deceased soldiers. General St. Clair's claim. So there's even some more content. This is an excellent one here. Any of the ones with content like military like that's always great. So now once you find the best content, that's the title. No matter what. That's my title on this one, is the military content. Old Oddfellow song. There's a song in here too. Interesting. So in the description, you'll write the secondary things. Like there's a Oddfellow song. There's talking about a stamp act. There's all kinds of other little interesting things. So when I do a listing for something like these, and I'm going to do them, and we're going to show them after I do the listings in another video. I'll list some content information. On a newspaper like this, I'm probably going to do 8 or 10 photos of it. Some of them will just show enlargements of a section of the newspaper. That'll show the articles on the war. I'll have enough so you can read a ton of the information. I'll probably point out key battle information, like this one's a battle. There's definitely a battle that happened in here that covers at least the full page total of this newspaper. So this is a great one here. So that's, again, a great content in that one. Okay, let's see. Here's another one, 1818, another February one. Here, let's see here. The Lord Mayor, strange case. Here's a criminal case up here, too. Something interesting that goes on. Theatrical information, House of Commons, House of Reps, an act. There's an act that's probably worth looking into. Talking about dismissal of marriages, heavy taxes being levied. From Washington Gazette, there's some information on, let's see here. Yeah, you're just going to have to look in here and see what's what in here. There's that elephant one again in here. Early corn harvesting, the press. Yeah, you'll just have to pick something out. And when they talk about, like, the Senate and stuff, look into those. Because in some cases, they're talking about a senator or a politician who later becomes president. So that's another aspect. If it mentions him before they're president, that can be something else that adds to the value. So just my take on it. Book releases. Again, if there's a book, there's an announcement for, like, a very well-known author releasing like the first edition of a book, that'll be something that could sell it. And it may only be like a little tiny ad. That would be enough to sell one of these for a good $100 even, depending on what we're talking about here. Again, this one doesn't have anything special, but again, $57.50 on the ones with no content, with just the typical thing. And again, I'm not digging through every one of these. I may spend 15 minutes looking through just one newspaper like this. And again, older the better. Don't mess with newer stuff unless there's just some phenomenal thing in it, in my opinion. St. Petersburg clean hemp. Rather interesting. I wonder if that's St. Petersburg, Florida, or if there's another one in Boston area. Not really sure. Again, you're going to look into all these. Spend time on these. Here's a real nice one. Engraving on wood. This one ad right here could be 100, 200 even. I'm going to have to look into one of these. Print ads on printers are incredibly insane. Look up printer trade card and see that some of them go for like $1,000. This is the same thing, but it's a print ad. This one could even be worth cutting up just for that one piece because of how rare that is. Here's one on military buttons too, so that would be something you could look into as well. There's some other good, interesting ads in here, but that type of thing. Oh, here's a real good one. Unfortunately, it's a bad topic, but there's slave content again. Obviously, I don't agree with any of that, but again, that's the value in things like this. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so here's an earlier one here. Here's 1790. Now you can really tell that there's cloth in the paper. It's got some little acid damage. I'm not going to worry about that as well either. Now this is something that almost all of these I put like 75 on when they're from this day and age. Amusements and punishments. Again, okay, so let's show you some of the lettering just so you can get a gist on it. Now if you look right there, now this is the word first, F-I-R. That F-looking character is an S, and that's first. So I'm just going to show you, and there's many more like that. So here's another example. Suffer, we suffer, and that's what suffer would be. And this is a newer version of older English, so there's letters in here that would be much different if they were earlier. Let's see here. Let's see what else we got in this one. There's some interesting more ship ads. Let's zoom back out. So this one, the military, here we go, of the Commonwealth. So this is a good article here talking about light infantry, the whole works, medical society, United States information over here, prospect of peace, Count of Europe, let's see here. Same day was executed the Frenchman who attempted to kill the Prime Minister the 13th of June. So this one's a pretty interesting one here too. Some good content. Stuff like this, again, this one will probably be even more. These are minimum $75 or better on these age of newspapers. This is typical of a 1790s colonial era newspaper. Union of France and England, Castilian, Carlton's Almanac, interesting. Now, if you see Washington or Franklin or anything like that, very interesting. Gun power, let's see, your timber, warranted new garden seeds, schooner coming in town. So all this is interesting information. The lottery from Massachusetts. Again, $75 or better on something like this. This one probably $125 just because of what's in it. I list them all high just like I do anything else, and that's where I'm going to go with these. Here's another 1818, interesting content. Indian War right off the bat. So here we go. Here's a whole big section of it. Here's a wolf hunt. Interesting. I don't know if that's related to the war or not. Henry Rice was removed from number 25 Broad Street. Don't know what that is. Harvard University articles up on the top. Let's see here. Let's move on. Already we've got Indian War articles, so that's already some good content. Shipping lists. Let's back out just a little bit more. So again, that's all the stuff that I'm looking for in these. Hopefully this gives you just some idea on this. In fact, there's the slave again. Now some of these are for a play, it looks like, and some of them are for slaves, so it's a big difference. Bottles. There's a bottle maker up here. Thomas A. Armour and Company. Walking shoes and boots. Canes. Collector's notice. Some interesting content. Most of these I'll do fairly well on. War of 1812 stuff, just for being War of 1812, is great. I mean, people will buy those if it's in that era for displays and things like that too. So nothing super in that one. Again, $57.50 for the cheapo ones with nothing in it. Now this one's a little ripped pretty badly. This one's got a higher content of hemp or something, and you can tell by how white the newspaper is here. Leaf, tobacco, and flour. This is 1818 as well, February 5th. These are mostly dailies, as you can see. Rum, hemp, duck, beer, pork. Interesting combination. Judge's auction. Middlesex, there's a canal issue. Might be something worth looking into. Again, it may not seem interesting to you, but to think of it from a historical value, like if there's a canal, back in this time frame, canals were used for transportation, canal boats. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these. So when you look at something, they're talking about something like that, it may be like a major highway to us nowadays. So here's some breakdowns on city financials. Oh, it is canal at Bow is more. Yeah, they're talking about building locks and canals. So this is transportation. Well worth looking more into. Let's see here. Potash, cotton. More cotton. Quite a few cottons. Some China whale oil. Yes, definitely worth looking into. And then another nice printout at the bottom. I've got a few more here as well, but that'll give you a basic idea on these, I hope. Newer ones, it's all relevant to what's the topic. Don't mess with most newspapers if it's just junk bunches of random days. Stick to war-related ones only. Landing on the Moon might get you 15 or 20 bucks. Death of Elvis these days, 15, 20 bucks. If it's his hometown, it's worth more. Now, newspapers, as I said, like most anything, age is what I look for, as you see like these. Apart from age, you want the subject matter war, as I said. So Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, or any war between or any war before that. Vietnam ones just don't sell that well. Most of the newer ones post 1900 are going to take some time to sell, even if they're good topics. But these earlier ones sell probably in half or a third the time of World War I, World War II newspapers. From my personal experience, there's more collectors of these earlier ones than anything else. And again, auctions number one, I would say a local live antique auction, estate sales, and flea market guys that are into the old stuff. Those are my best bet on that. We're going to cut over into showing you how to cut up some magazines in just a second here. Okay, so now I pulled out some stuff. I get this question quite often. How do I break down all the material for ads and stuff like that? Now, I have a affiliation, a thing for the old Alice in Wonderland and the Wizard of Oz illustrations. So I always snag up these crapped out books, pardon the language, but they're not worth selling. I love the illustrations, though. This one I'm going to keep whole. I might even put some tape on it, but this one here we're going to cut apart because there's really no reason to keep it. It has some nice artwork in it. This one's trashed. You know, the only way to keep this one would be to keep the cover. But inside here, some color, full color illustrations. And we'll try and get those out of here without doing any damage to them. Now, I don't care as much about these, but we'll cut it apart in a minute here. We'll do the magazines first. Let's set this aside. This is typically what I cut apart, stuff like this. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have had the book. It's not worth much, maybe 50, 60 bucks in excellent condition. It's a, let's see here, reprint from 1928, so rather interesting either way. Let's cut up these magazines, though, first. Now, I've picked two different kinds. I think these are, what, perfect bind or something like that, where it's glued in like that. And my favorite kind to take apart are the staples. I love digging the staples out and tearing these apart. Okay, so this one here has this Babe Ruth here. Now, you can cut the whole thing apart or whatever you want to do, but I always do it the same way. Usually the ads aren't right there on there. I'll find the very center of the magazine. Let me figure out where we're at here. And then I'm going to unbend these. Now, I never, ever, 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 ever use a staple remover because they can crinkle and ruin the paper. Now, this is, in fact, let's zoom in here a little bit so you can see it as we do it. Let me get us where we're at. Okay, so this is a dental tool. Now, I bought a whole set of these. I use them for clay and all kinds of stuff. But it has little pry bars on it. And it even has one here, which I use occasionally. So you can slide the pointy part of the staple into this so it won't, kind of like this. And it makes like a pry area, if that makes any sense. So sometimes I use this method. Sometimes I use these to bend it over with my finger on one side. I know this doesn't sound like it's any big, hard ordeal, but if you've never done it before, you want to make sure you're not crunching, ripping, or tearing anything around here. Again, as I said, if you use a staple remover, chances are you're going to ruin it here. I know chances are there's no print or anything you want here, but start off from the beginning and do it right is what I say. Let's go back to this one here, and we're just going to carefully pry it under there without damaging it. Hang on, there we go. And usually I put my finger on one side, and we just do the same thing. And I've got other ends on here, so if you can only get a little piece under it, just the same thing. It just depends on what you're doing with it. Let me back up there. But that's all I do. So I literally take apart every magazine all the way around. So, and then if you're careful, my fingernail will just fit. Or again, you can use any kind of tool you want. Some people use a little screwdriver, but these seem to work the best. And this is my means for getting rid of any staple and anything. I sometimes will remove rusted staples from magazines and then replace them with better staples, vintage ones, from one magazine and just swap them out. I know that sounds extreme, but when there's a bad staple or it's damaged and the magazine's a good one, it's best to remove the staple. Now let's say there's one in here. Let's just say this is an ad. You can pull out everything you have right up to it. set the rest aside. We're going to cut out those two as well, too, but I'm just showing you from the middle. One method you can do is just go ahead and carefully cut it off on this side. So again, we're trying to save this piece right here, this critics report. Pretend that's an ad. And what I do then is I've got these, and I've shown them in other videos. I love these things, work great. You can go ahead and cut it down to size. These work awesome. The blades in these are like fine razor blades. So we're going to just push it down and zip it across, and then boom, there we go. I try to leave some on it. I'm just giving you an example here, so I'd leave some more. So I know people say, well, the big huge pages like this don't fit in one of those. This is how I do it. You know, I have a big giant paper cutter. I'm not pulling it out to show you because it's the same basic principle, and you don't need to buy one, I would say, right off the bat. I spent a lot of money on a paper cutter because I do artwork as well, so I'm not saying to go out and buy something like that. Let me zip this other one with it. And then that would be the print ad, nice squared off, just the way it would want to be. Let's pull these off here too. Now if it's bigger and you don't have a paper cutter, we're going to show you this one here. Now other tools I use are metal rulers like this to cut with. It's not great to use a plastic one. We're going to use one today just to show you that it's just fine to do if you're careful. I also have printer's rulers, and what a printer's ruler is a metal ruler on the face, and it has cork on the back so it doesn't slide. I wished I had mine right handy, but I don't have it right here. But we're going to use this ruler, and we're just going to zip this out of here. Again, I always take the magazine or article apart, always. I never ever cut it out when it's still inside the magazine. It's just a force of habit, less chance on doing any damage to it. In fact, let's cut this one off first here. So we're just going to line it up the best we can and give it a whack there. Let's see here. It's got a dividing line so we can cut on this side of it. That's one of them. And let's cut the other one off. Again, just follow that line. I stay on the other side of the line. This Babe Ruth, this is a 40, so, you know, it could hold some decent value. Something that might go for, say, $20 with a lot of 4 or 5 of these. That's about what I would expect. Now, if you have problems cutting it, hold the blade at a very sharp angle, and it will give you some more force to cut it. The other thing you want to do is have a sharp needle, or a sharp blade, I should say, in here. The sharper the blade, the better. After doing a couple dozen of these, check the blade again on something else. But that's all there is to removing these print ads. So here's 2 fine examples. Now, one other thing you can do, since this is a print ad, you're not selling a whole magazine. If you see, in fact, let's zoom in there just a little bit just so you can see it. Stuff like this, this edge is right there. That you can trim down that edge as well if you'd like, and that would remove any of the crumbleness or the issues on the edge of it. Looks like something actually probably chewed on it, which does happen with magazines. People wonder on that, but yes, rats and things will chew on magazines. Of course, let's back up just a little bit there. And let's just cut this edge off. Just line it up correctly, too. You can measure this out. Take your time. I'm pretty correct on my measurements, and I don't see any big issues. Let's just zap this one down. Now, if you have a paper cutter with a very sharp blade, a real nice paper cutter, you won't have this issue with it. In fact, let's just get that little tiny bit off. Line it up all the way across. And I'm going to go in the other direction. And voila, there we go. That is it. So here we go. You got the Babe Ruth. It came out just fine. And here's the other one. Again, right here, we've got some more issues on the edge there. I'll do the same thing. In fact, let's just whack off that edge. That way there'll be no issues on what's on the end. And these have plenty of space because of where they are at on the magazine. Usually the cover ones are much safer to do. If it's a little off, you're not going to be in that big of an issue. So there we go. Perfect example of what I would do for it. And again, anywhere where it's a print ad like this, you can safely trim the edges and not worry. You don't have to say a thing because this is already cut out of something. So that's all there is on that. Let's look at the book now real quick while